What's good, peeps? Thanks as always for passing by the channel. Much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. Don't forget as well, please, to like and share the videos. Again, thank you to everyone that continues to do that. You can also support the channel as well. I do have a Patreon account. The link is in the description. All right, continuing our theme of what next, let's discuss what next for the enigma that is Chris Eubank Jr. I like Chris Eubank Jr. Have to admit I do. I like his dry sense of humor. I like that him and his dad, mainly his dad, are characters, right? There's nothing wrong with being a character, especially in this boxing game. I do think you need to stand out a little bit. He's a decent fighter, only the 2 losses on the record. And in hindsight, they're not that bad losses. I mean, Billy Joe Saunders at British level wasn't a bad loss. It was a split decision loss. His performance wasn't great, but again, that's Billy Joe Saunders. Everyone praises Billy Joe Saunders, so it can't be that bad a loss. And obviously lost to George Groves in the World Boxing Super Series final at super middleweight. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So not horrific losses. He's won fringe belts. He's won fringe world title belts, IBO, at 160 and 168. I do think people either like him or hate him, right? It's a bit like Marmite. You either love it or hate it. I'm not that far either side. I just like him. I think he's a decent guy. He lives the life, which I appreciate. And I do think there's still a good career waiting for him. I still think he can do some damage at 160. I'm not saying that he can knock off the top guys, but I do think he can make his name in the 160 division. I do feel, before we talk about what's next, I do feel like him and his dad have missed a trick over here. I do think that they could have been, or he could have been, sorry, a superstar over here. British boxing doesn't have many superstars. And I do think Chris Eubank Jr. could have been one. Maybe not, in fact, definitely not to the level of an Anthony Joshua, or maybe not even to a level of a Derek Chisora or a Dillian Whyte that do good pay-per-view numbers. But he could have been a pay-per-view fighter over here, selling out shows at the O2 Arena or the MEN Arena, or headlining shows anywhere. He could have been that guy. But I think they've missed a trick. They've gone from promoter to promoter. They've gone from TV network to TV network. And I feel like they just need to stay in one place now and make a name for himself. And obviously he thinks he can do that at PBC in America. 2019 wasn't a great year by any stretch of the imagination. It started well, that grudge match with James DeGale. That was in February of 2019. They didn't build on it, right? That was a chance to build on it. You got a good win. Yes, James DeGale retired after, but nonetheless, it was a good performance against a good boxer. And they just kind of stayed on the shelf. They did nothing. There was talks about John Ryder. There was talks about a Billy Joe Saunders rematch. Nothing happened. And then we had this fight in America against Korobov. And obviously we saw what happened, right? And that fight wasn't going too well. So maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was a bit of luck that Korobov did injure his shoulder because, I mean, again, Chris Eubank Jr. always does come on strong. We've seen that in the second half of fights, but you never know. So it's not been a good 2019. 2020 has to be better. The idea was that if he performed well in that fight and Charlo beat Hogan, which Charlo did, there was talks about those 2 guys fighting, which would have been a good fight, I think. I think Charlo would have been the favorite because I think Charlo is just the better boxer. But that would have been a good way to announce yourself in America. The last fight didn't do that. That's not going to happen. Charlo, I don't think, has any interest in fighting Chris Eubank Jr. There has been an offer to Charlo from Eddie Hearn for Charlo to fight Andrade, and you can see him going down that route. But the problem for Chris Eubank Jr., and it could be a big problem, like Charlo's seeing for himself now on PBC, is that he's in the 160-pound division now, which is the right division for him, by the way. 168 is just far too small. Strong, but small. 160, though, is dominated by DAZN and Matchroom. It's that simple. So I don't know what deal he's got with Al Heyman and PBC, I'm not quite sure. But if it's a short deal, I suggest that he sorts out whatever issue he has with Eddie Hearn and jumps over and goes into bed with Matchroom and DAZN. He's got to. You look at the 160 division and even 168, but look at the 160 division first, and everything is on DAZN. Everything. Derevchenko is over there. Demetrius Andrade is over there. GGG is over there. Canelo can come back down to 160. He's over there. Billy Joe Saunders can come back to 160. He's over there. All of those fights are big fights. Minus Derevchenko, all of those fights are big money fights as well. All of those fights, right? All world champions in their own right. So he needs to move over, I think, to DAZN and Matchroom for it to be a good 2020. I don't know if he will. Again, there is an issue with him and Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn always talks about it, that the Eubanks are difficult to deal with. But he needs to, if he wants those big fights, he's on the wrong network. It's that simple. He's on the wrong network. I mean, Charlo's stock has gone down massively compared to where it was a year and a half ago, and he's realizing that as well. Hence why I do think Charlo takes that offer that Eddie Hearn has put out there for him to have that one fight deal with Demetrius Andrade. But Eubank needs to go over there if he wants to stay at 160, even if he wants to stay at if he wants to move to 168. 168 has, again, Billy Joe Saunders, right? Canelo's at 168 because those guys are going in between weights right now. Callum Smith is at 168. Danny Jacobs is at 168. Again, all money fights, right? All current or former world champions. Those are the big fights he needs. I don't know if he's chasing big fights. There's something about Chris Eubank Jr. where he weighs up the risk-reward factor, and if it doesn't match up for him, he's just not interested. I don't know if that's because of what his dad is feeding him, or that's just he's made up his own mind. But if he wants the big fights in 2020, and he keeps talking about wanting these big fights, then he's got to either wait for an offer like Charlo got to fight Demetrius Andrade, or he's got to make the push himself and just switch camps. I would like to see Eubank fight Demetrius Andrade. I think that's a fantastic fight. I'd like to see Eubank take the rematch against Billy Joe Saunders. Golovkin is there for the taking now. I don't know if Eubank's the man to take him, but look, you want to be in the mix. You want to be in the conversation for these big fights. But maybe the most important thing, and we know he likes to live lavishly, is that all these fights I mentioned make money. They're big sellers. I mean, some of the fights in the UK could be pay-per-view, right? Billy Joe Saunders versus Chris Eubank Jr. in the UK could be pay-per-view. Even Callum Smith could be pay-per-view. I mean, Canelo, GGG, Demetrius Andrade, all big money fights. His name needs to get involved in the discussion. And right now, heading into 2020, I doubt that it is. Again, he might get one fight offers from Eddie Hearn, but he needs to switch camps completely, like what Billy Joe Saunders did in kind of leaving Frank Warren, which couldn't have been easy. He needs to do that, join Matchroom, join DAZN, and make shit happen for 2020. What do you guys think? If he doesn't join Matchroom and DAZN, which might not happen, who can he fight at 160 or even 168 over in PBC? The 168 guys, obviously Benavidez is there, Caleb Plant's there, all too big for me for Chris Eubank Jr. At 160, not much there. Not much there that is exciting. And again, 2019 started very good with the James DeGale win, and it's just died. It died completely, and somehow he needs to breathe fire back onto his career, and I think he will. I'm always excited when Chris Eubank Jr. announces he's going to fight, but it'll be more exciting if he has an A-list dance partner, not what he's been fighting recently. Peace.